There are a few moments in my life where I distinctly remember the moment of it and how I felt. I was thinking about this last night. So, like, the first time I used an iPhone, I remember thinking, this is game changing. Right. The first time I rode in a Tesla, this is game changing. The most recent one was the first time I used ChatGPT to write code and I saw how good it was. And I thought, okay, this is game changing. So you had that moment the first time you wrote a basic program. I'm curious, do you have other moments like that in your life that you can think back to where you're like, this is a paradigm shift. I've seen it. Nothing's ever going to be the same again.
Yeah, so related to technology or in general. So that take music for example, right? So I was a big fan of the Peppers, right? Red Hot Chili Peppers. So I was listening to the Peppers, and one of the things that I was doing was that I was always forwarding to like guitar solos because I love like drum, bass, and then the guitar solo, right? So you had album, the Blood Sugar Sex Magic, and then you had like what's the name of Funky Monks or something like that. And then I went to the guitar solos, and I had a teacher. And he said, like, well, if you like that kind of stuff, I have something else for you. And he gave me like CD, and a CD, like a ripped CD, of course,
Yeah, sure.
of like Fat Time from Miles Davis. And then that number, Fat Time, so that's with Mark Miller on bass, the end of Mike Stern. And he also had the guitars, but not 30 seconds, but like 6 minutes. And the band, I believe it's like Billy Cobham or something on drums, and I was like 15 or something. I was like, holy shit, what is this? And I had a couple of these things in music, right? Kind of stuff. When I got a little bit older, I did it with classical music, with Stravinsky. In the end, if you're deep into music, we all end up with Bach.
It all starts there, yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
I was a little bit older. Those kind of eye-opening moments in technology, I had it indeed with like just being able to write code, not with the internet, because I was very young when we had the first. For me, having an internet connection was a little bit status quo.
The first time I got on the internet, that's another one of my moments. Because I ran a bulletin board system. I ran a Renegade BBS, and I was big into like dial-up bulletin boards and stuff. So the first time I got on the World Wide Web, I was like, okay.
Yeah, so that's something I don't have because I was so young when we had an internet connection at home. That was just a thing we had.
Right. Yeah, you're in that first generation of people who grew up with it.
But I absolutely with mobile phones as well, 100%. Cloud, the just being able to just spin stuff up and build stuff, just that was also an eye-opening moment. And this one, well, we're probably going to talk about this a lot, and it is going to sound by cliche now, but like machine learning, that was like I don't know if you want to go into that now, but machine learning absolutely as well. But also, for example, in literature, I mean, I remember, so I was like 16, 17, and I was like this smart ass. There's typically those.
I know exactly what you mean. I was one.
And I remember, so I was like, okay, I want to read Kafka, right? So I was like confused about it, and it was actually the dad.
What is this metamorphosis thing?
Exactly, and I didn't get it, and it was actually a friend. So the dad of a friend of mine, he said, are you reading Kafka? I said, yeah, because and he said, do you actually understand the metaphors? So I was reading the process, and he was like explaining the metaphors to me, and I was like, holy shit, can you do that? And I think one of the important things that when I was around that age that emerged, that was like so I learned that everything that you do, doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter if it's starting a software business, doesn't matter if you play in a band, doesn't matter if you want to be chef, doesn't matter, whatever, anything you make, there's this concept of you can go to a place where it's the best.
Yeah, sure.
And when I say this now, it sounds like such a obvious thing, right? So, duh, of course. But back then, when you're like 16, 17, that you discover these kind of things. And I was like, so the cliches are, in tech, it's the Bay Area. It's like you do jazz, you go to New York. If you want to be a chef, you go to Paris or to Tokyo, and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah, centers of excellence for whatever.
And that was what I discovered then, that I was like, okay, so there are like a couple of things that not that much, but they're like, I guess like two things that I was like gifted with, that insight in music and natural understanding of, working with software. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to figure that stuff out. And then I just went on wandering around, meeting people, building stuff when I was studying music. So I did a couple of jazz projects that I'm super proud of, or creative projects. They're also still online. I did a project with drummer Billy Martin, and I was like super proud of that. And I paid for that by writing software. But then I was like early 20s, and I was like, I want to do software really full time. Because I felt that was just I had a friend, a jazz player. His name he's a piano player. He's now in his 80s, I think, jazz piano player. And when he told me these stories about the 60s and the 70s, how the music scene, what was happening there, I just knew that was just, especially 10 years ago, not happening at all in music, but it was in tech, right? So it's like, I want to be part of something that's happening in my lifetime where I feel that what happening in the 60s and the 70s in music, that's now happening in tech, and I want to be part of that. And it happens that of the two gifts that I have in music and in software that so that's why I decided to go to fully focus on software, because I just wanted to be part of that, but not just because I felt I can make more things there now, because from a cultural perspective in general, this is the time. It's the time of tech right now and not the
Absolutely.
time of music.